This week we finish the book of Joshua and start the book of Judges. I hope you can stomach stories of warfare because that's what most of it is. The book of Joshua tells the story of the conquest of Canaan. One of the weirder moments in the story is when the sun stood still. This particular story became controversial in early modern times when scientific thought began to move to the notion of the earth turning on an axis rather than the sun orbiting the earth. If that was the case, then the sun stopping in the sky would have meant the earth stopped turning for some hours. What sense does that make? My own opinion is that a lot of our ancient stories include a fair measure of legend, and please don't make too much of it. The hardest part for modern readers, perhaps, is hearing the Lord God commanding complete and total destruction. More than once, earlier in the Bible, the Lord had said that these nations were to be wiped out because of their unrighteousness. Perhaps they would not have seen it that way, but we have the luxury of retrospect and our comfortable armchairs in which to be critical. It is helpful to remember that these stories represent an era in our history thousands of years ago. Do not lay our cultural assumptions on them. It is also useful to note that those peoples they did not destroy did become, as God had warned, a problem for them. So simply read the stories. Acknowledge they too are part of our history, just as what our ancestors did to the Ponca and the Omaha are part of our history. And keep going. A lot of this week's reading is about as fascinating as reading legal descriptions of property in a real estate transaction. Unless you're into that sort of thing, you may want to read over that quickly. But the conclusion of the book of Joshua is a trumpet call, a stirring story. Choose this day whom you will serve, Joshua says to the people shortly before his death. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, he says. The people, too, promise to serve the Lord. As the book of Judges begins, Joshua is still leading the people in conquest, and after things settle down, they all go to their homes and land and get about trying to build a new society. Joshua died. And the next line is, Then the Israelites did what was evil in the sight of the Lord and worshipped the Baals, and they abandoned the Lord, the God of their ancestors, who had brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods. What is it about us that we cannot stay faithful unless there's someone watching us? Well, the book of Judges is a series of stories that begin with the people being unfaithful. They are oppressed by an enemy. They cry out to the Lord for relief, and the Lord raises up someone to lead them against their enemies. Such a person is called a judge, although they seem to do more leading in battle than sitting in judgment. Or perhaps those are simply the stories the people remembered. The first judges were named Othniel and Ehud. Othniel was the younger brother of Caleb, remember him? And Ehud was devious, and his means of delivering Israel is a story with a certain ew factor. Shamgar gets all of one verse dedicated to him, and then comes the first great judge of memory, Deborah. I preached about Deborah on October 25th, and you can watch that sermon on YouTube, so I'll say no more here but this. All those male chauvinists in our country who despise strong women in our politics would simply have hated Deborah.